Hello, my name is Frederik, and today I'm going to talk about why DIY. So, I've previously shot videos where I'm talking about various projects that you can make at home, various training tools. So in this video I'm going to talk about a little bit of the whys as to why would you want to do this in the first place and how does it connect to other things. So a little bit of background into the DIY stuff. One of the first projects that I made in terms of making training tools was a set of gymnastic rings. I eventually ended up making 2 sets. At the time, gymnastic rings was kind of obscure. I was getting into bodyweight training when it was kind of an underground sort of activity, not very common. And so getting a hold of gymnastic rings was difficult. And if you were a private person where I was, you couldn't buy them. So either you had to get them via creative means. Sometimes schools were getting rid of them because they were rebuilding their gymnastic facilities, or maybe you could get them like that. Otherwise, you would have to import them, which was hugely expensive and difficult and time consuming. The third option, making them yourself. So that's how one of the first projects I did, and rings turned out great. I still have them lying around somewhere. So that's the first real reason for DIY is availability. You can get things, you can get it custom made, and you can get something that's otherwise not a thing. So it allows you to do something that otherwise would be you couldn't do. The other thing related to that is, so I'm describing gymnastic rings, and in recent years, gymnastic rings are a lot more available. Say 5 to 10 years, you can get them in many more places. There's been a similar arc for a lot of other types of training equipment. Kettlebells is another example, that it was almost impossible to get kettlebells in most places like a while back, and now you can even find them in supermarkets. So it's quite a renaissance that's happened in that field as well. Now, the second point with making equipment yourself has to do with creativity. It's quite simply that if you make equipment yourself, and the point I'm making here as well is you don't necessarily have to go and start an elaborate process and make something that takes a lot of time. I would argue that this process also relates to just seeing how things that might have another primary use can be used quite effectively as a training tool. So an obvious and easy example would be something like a wheelbarrow, which is you use it in construction, but you can equally use it for physical training. And oftentimes things that have a primary use and they're mass produced, they're quite cheap. So wheelbarrow will not set you back very much, and you can just use it for as a conditioning workout. There's various other exercises you can do with a wheelbarrow, but the main point is just that you even have one lying around at home at your house, and you just repurpose that, and you don't have to go and invest in something, and it allows you more possibilities. So DIY helps seeing these possibilities. Sometimes it's workout equipment. They just I've seen this a lot with people beginning to use barbells, and they place them in the rack and then sometimes make them into an extra bar, or they do landmine type movements with the bar. That's another example of I would say DIY mentality taken into the gym. So it's just that creativity showing itself. The third thing is what I would call upskilling, and that's quite simply, if you make things, and this is a little bit more back to the original point of making things, it will slowly, and if you do it again and again, it will allow you a skill set which you can refine, and the next time you go and build something, you'll have those skills, experiences to draw on, and it'll be a little bit easier, and you'll feel a little bit more confident to do something that's a little bit more challenging. Maybe, hopefully, that skill set you can use that in other places. So it doesn't have to be training equipment. That's the jumping off point here, but it could be anything else. So if you get some of those skills and you say, maybe I can build something else for my house or whatever. It's a general upskilling. You get more abilities to do things. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. And if a little project can begin to enkindle that's one of the reasons to look at these small projects. So yeah, in conclusion, and perhaps the last and possibly the most important reason of all, is the satisfaction related to making things. You had something you wanted to achieve, and you use your own hands and wits and everything, and you made something and it works. There's a tremendous satisfaction in that, and I can sit here and say it, but it's only when you do it yourself and you have that feeling of like, yeah, I did that. So that's perhaps the best reason to do it. And with those words, I'll finish with the statement, go build something. All right, and if you enjoyed this video, then consider hitting the little like button or the subscribe button. It would help me out tremendously. And as always, thank you for watching.